Miller's story has obviously touched a lot of people. Just how proud are you of the culture that you've created here, where especially with macho guys, feel comfortable speaking out and getting the help that they need? You've created that culture. Well, maybe like 10 years ago, 5 years ago, that probably wouldn't have happened.
I think first off, when I think about the whole situation, the thing that makes me the most proud is the work that Harry did to get to this point. He certainly wasn't where he is right now a year ago, and he did the work. What we did is put structures in place to help him and to help all of our players. Just like if somebody tears their ACL or sprains their ankle, they need physical therapy. There's guys who need some work in the mental area, and that's really what happened. He did the work. We just put the structure together, and proud that he's in a better place now than he was certainly at this point last year.
Concerned were you when he came to you and said that he was having suicidal thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, you can imagine how emotional that is, and it's something that keeps you up at night for sure. And there's a lot that goes on with our players, but that's part of coaching, and that's what people ask about the difference between the NFL and college. I mean, this is a great example. You have an opportunity to dive into people's lives and try to help, and just excited that he's kind of in a moment. Now, this was a huge decision for Harry. It took a whole year to kind of get to this point for him, and you can tell how emotional he was about it because football's been a huge part of his life. So to step away was a big deal, and now he's kind of repurposing himself, and that's not easy to do. But proud of what he's done, and he's got a lot to offer.
One more from me. I hate to try to even ask you a football question, but I do want to ask a football question. The Leo and Jim Knowles' defense, just your thoughts on that position, and who maybe are some candidates to play that position for you guys?
Yeah, we really haven't dove into that as much. It's mostly been about the 4-down stuff early on and just kind of installing the base defense. Certainly the first week, and now as we get into practice 3, 4, and 5, that's where we're going to really start diving into that. And some of the guys are going to kind of surface as we move forward. But I think our base stuff is 4 down, and that's where we're going to start, and that's where we've started. But that package is something that at Oklahoma State and at Duke has been pretty dynamic, and I'm excited to see where it goes. We're not there quite yet, but it's coming fast.
We can go third row left. Dan Hope, 11 Warriors.
Yeah, Ryan, just follow up on Harry. He had said in his statement that he was grateful to you for giving him an opportunity to give back to the program in a different way. Is he still around? And kind of what's his involvement still?
Yep, we're still trying to figure that out. What that means for him. The fact that he retired from football is one thing, but he still wants to be part of the program and find a way to make an impact. And so we said we didn't need to make that decision right now. We're going to give it a little time and try to figure out how that is, but he certainly has a lot to give.
What kind of emotions does it conjure up in you as somebody who's has been open about your own mental health struggles to see him be on the Today Show and to share that message with people and try to make a difference for others?
Yeah, I mean, I try not to make it about me. This is about Harry, and this is about his journey. And I just see the courage to go step out and do that because, you're very vulnerable when you do something like this. And I think, to Dave's point, the fact that, you're a football player, and somebody who's 6'5", 320 pounds, and valedictorian of his high school, you think, everything's just, real easy. It's not that way. There's a lot that goes with that. And so to see him do that has been great. But, I am proud that he was able to step out and ask for the help and then be willing to do the work because that's the hard part. I think you certainly have to have the courage to say something and ask for help, but then you got to go do the work, wake up every day, and he's done that. So, great to see that. But this is still something. This is a work in progress for him, and I think there's a lot of guys on our team that really supported him, and then I think. One of the things to your point is that, when you go and put yourself out there on the Today Show, when you put yourself out there publicly, there's a concern of what people may say or think. And I think that the support of Buckeye Nation, of the state of Ohio, of Ohio State, of this football team, and really nationally has been pretty remarkable. And I think that means a lot to him.
Go second row left. Stephen Means, Cleveland.com.
Ryan, just kind of switching gears from that topic for a second. Last year, I know you guys let Garrett and Chris and J-Mo, when he was still here, participate in Pro Day. Obviously, Garrett and Chris are going through it on their own now. Is there a chance TJ's their quarterback tomorrow when they're going through drills?
Yeah. So the plan is to have him and Cardell do Pro Day with those guys and throw. So they've kind of gone through routine and rehearsed that. So we can do the best job of putting our best foot forward for everybody involved and everybody participating.
Obviously, CJ's a year year from even being able to make a decision. But what do you think he gets out of that experience? And see NFL scouts get there.
Yeah, I mean, I think he wants to be there to help Garrett and Chris and Master, and Chris Booker will be there, Demario McCall. So, I think that's the biggest thing, is be there to support his teammates and try to, put on a good show. I think part of it, we put too much pressure on something like that. So I think for him to be out there and help those guys be comfortable is important. Cardell will be out there as well, and then they've thrown a little bit. So, but it's a good opportunity for CJ to go through it and just see what that's like and feel it. So when he's there next time, he'll be maybe a little more comfortable.
Fourth row middle, Colin Gate Rivals.
One more thing on the Harry Miller stuff. One of the things he was talking about in his statement was that the amount of backlash that players get, whether it's, you suck, transfer, these responses. Harry even said there were death threats given to players. I'm curious about is that something that you've seen? Is that something that's real to you? And kind of how do you approach that, or when you hear something along those lines?
Yeah, I mean, anything in terms of a death threat or like that comes on our plate, certainly we would handle very seriously. But we do, see a lot of the exposure that our players get. Everybody, I get, and that's unfortunately part of this job, but it doesn't make it easy. And it's one thing for somebody in their 40s to be able to compartmentalize things like that, but it's a lot harder for the younger generation who's really found their identity through social media and through their phones to go on there and see some of those things. It's one thing to tell them, hey, it's only 10 people. I say it all the time, when you look at a stadium of 107,000 people, if you have 10 bad comments, there's like a little tiny section in that stadium right there. Everybody else is great, but all you see is those 10 people and those comments, and they just kind of stick with you. So it's something we do talk about and try to figure out ways to help these guys with that. We call it the man in the arena. We have it, I think it's behind one of these here. That's it right here. We talk about the man in the arena, and the guy who's actually in the arena is the one who counts, not the critics and the people who criticize and say those things. It's actually the warriors who actually go out in the field, and that's a big thing today. And I think now with social media and the amount of exposure that these guys get, it's great. There's a lot to gain from it, but sometimes it can hurt. But and I think the easy thing to do is to look at it and say, well, boy, they get a free scholarship, they get all this attention, they get all this, and that's great. It is true, but there's also the other part of it that is easier for some to handle, and a little bit more difficult for others. And it's something we need to be aware of, and that's why we've put in place some of these services to help our guys to deal with that.
And I guess to the football side, I'm curious, how have you seen kind of Devin Brown get ingrained in your room? What's his relationship like with CJ? I know he's talked about his relationship with Kyle throwing in winter practices and things like that. I mean, how have you guys seen him kind of get involved in the room and kind of that relationship of the room kind of growing?
No, I think it's pretty good. I think this is a good group. It's a good room. And Devin's, just getting his feet wet right now. He's learning every time he's out there. It's for the first time, but Kyle's really been working hard. A good thing is he's got a year under his belt, so he's a little bit more veteran in that area. And then certainly CJ has a lot more game experience. So you have three different guys with different types of experience, but they seem to be gelling well right now and getting a lot of reps and learning. But it's only practice 3.
Here we go, second row left, Bill Landis, The Athletic.
Ryan, just wondering about some of your personnel and all these receivers and running backs you have, and whether or not you entertain a little more the idea of some packages without a tight end on the field, or if you have a philosophy along the lines of we always want to have a tight end on the field no matter what. Like, how do you kind of work through that stuff?
Yeah, well, I mean, we have to have tight ends for sure. When you don't put a tight end in the game, it really limits what you can do running the football. So we have to have the physicality up front to be able to do that. We certainly want to have at least one tight end in the game and possibly two. And then Mitch, kind of gives us that kind of fullback H type, and we like that. We like to have the ability to do that. And we'll try to find as many creative ways to be able to run the football when we have more skill guys on the field, and we'll consider being in 10 personnel, which is 4 receivers in a game, but it limits what you can do. The more receivers that we can put out there and play in the game, we will do. But we'd like to have at least a tight end or 2 in the game.
When you have Mitch on the field, can you possibly consider that more like 20 personnel because he is more of an H-back than he is, I guess, an inline kind of tight end?
Yeah, I think so. He has a little bit different skill set than Joe Royer and G. Scott, Sam Hart, Bennett Christian's just kind of getting started. And so when you look at those guys, they're a little bit different styles of player. And, Mitch is a little bit more of, like you said, that little bit, he could probably play in the backfield a little bit more, although we haven't done a lot of that. But that's, he's coming back. He's injured right now. He's not practicing this spring, but looking forward to have him being a part of this offense, and, in the fall, that he can do some of those things.
Front row right, Joey Kaufman, Columbus Dispatch.
Ryan, what's been your kind of, I guess, early takeaways with the offensive line, new position coach, but there's some continuity there. What's been kind of your early impressions?
I wouldn't say there's a ton of early impressions, other than I think they're trying to, just understand Coach Fry and the way he does things, and build some power of the unit and some camaraderie in that group. He's a tremendous teacher and technician, and I think they've really dove into that and enjoy that. You'll have to ask them, but we just put the pads on today, so it's hard for offensive linemen when you don't have pads on to really, see where you're at. I think we'll watch the film today and have a lot to correct, but I think as we get through the meat of spring ball, we'll have a better idea where that is. But I think right now they're in a decent place, but we moved Paris over to left tackle, so that's an adjustment there, and Donovan stepping in at guard, and so DeJuan's really put a lot of work in the offseason. Matt Jones, so we have some good guys in there. Enoch has been working hard. So there's some guys in there that can challenge for some of those starting positions. That'll be fun to watch. And then some of the younger guys got to really develop. Some of the guys who came in the last couple of classes, now it's time for them to step up.
How big of an adjustment is that for Paris? To go from
he's played tackle, I think, the majority of his life. So the bigger adjustment was moving to guard. But now as you go to play tackle, left tackle at Ohio State at the highest level, certainly there's a lot of development there, when you played guard for last year. But it's not like he's never played tackle before.
Front row right, Austin Ward, Letterman Row.
Ryan, I know it's just 3 days, not everything is installed in one day in pads, but what have you thought about matching up against Jim Knowles and his defenses? It seems like he can do a lot of things that might test you creatively throughout spring ball.
I think the thing that I've noticed so far with Jim is that it's not a competition every day of who can win the drill. It's about teaching, because he has his eyes on that first game in September. And there's going to be a time where we want to go against each other and move the ball and try to be competitive. But I think that's the veteran coach in him, and he understands the big picture. And there's a method to the way he's installing and the way he's teaching. And we had a practice before we left where he ran the same defense the entire practice. It's just unbelievable teaching to me. It's not about trying to win the drill. It's, okay, how can we get better at this defense and learn it at a deep level, at a high level. I thought that was really impressive. So it's only practice 3, long way to go. Still not, I don't even know what percentage he would say the defense is in, so we'll see. But I really am impressed with the way that the guys have been playing with their energy. Their attention to detail so far has been good.
Is it some of that versatility, that ability to be multiple with that defense? I know that's what you've wanted. Is there a part of you that wants to see that more for the offense, or wants to give those different looks to CJ in practice, or like you said, you understand his philosophy and you're just going to let him do that?
Yeah, no, I think it's great. I think that anytime you can challenge each other on both sides of the ball, it's excellent, because you get to see where the issues are before you get on the field. And I think that he's going to do that. He's got a lot of different ways, and then there becomes the gamesmanship within the game of trying to get the right call on against the right defense and vice versa. So he's very, very good at that, and it makes us better because it's challenging every day on both sides of the ball.
Fourth row middle, Pat Murphy, 24/7 Sports.
Ryan, I think there's a excitement about some of the young defensive linemen, guys who played last year but not as much. But the veterans you got coming back, Zach and that group, what can they give you that maybe people aren't expecting? They've seen those guys play, they kind of know that, but having seniors in that room and whatnot.
Yeah, that's important, and I think, like you said, Zach and Teron, Tyler Friday, Jerron Cage, these are some guys who have been around the program for a few years now, and so this is very important for them to play veteran for us. But it gives us that veteran presence. They've played a lot of football. Those guys played in the national championship game, so it's exciting to have some guys over there that you've been in the program for a couple of years, and then kind of we have some of that freshman now sophomore group, and they're going to be right there. So it should be the strength of our defense is up front.
We will go right in front of him, Doug Lesmerises, Cleveland.com.
Could you take an athletic tackle and play him at tight end some, and flip him a pass every now and then to keep a defense honest?
Yeah, yeah, and you know, we did that a little bit last year with Donovan. I don't know if you remember, he came in and wore 41, and so it's something for sure that you can do. A lot of teams do that, and we'll definitely look into that as well.
Could you move a guy? If you're looking for, we want a physical tight end to block in the run game a lot, a
Yep.
Luke Farrell type of guy.
Yep,
Could
for
you
sure.
find that in the offensive line room?
Yeah, I think so. And we talked about that, and I think it gives you something. Certainly doesn't give you as much in the passing game, but certainly gives you more in the run game. Yep.
And when you think about the way you guys want to run the ball, and if your quarterback's not really a big part of the run game, and you don't want Travion carrying it 35 times a game, how much can you involve receivers in the run game? As any kind of, hey, maybe, you know, run a jet sweep or do something. I know you count the bubbles and stuff as that's kind of part of the run game.
Yes.
But can you hand it off to receivers even a little bit more?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you know, you have to be a strong receiver, like when you see Deebo Samuel for the Niners do it. But he's big and strong and thick. You know, you have to be smart about putting those guys in situations where they're running inside the tackles. But like you said, whether it's a speed sweep or a bubble screen or those type of things where you can reverses, where you can get the ball outside the tackles, you know, those aren't as big a hits on their bodies. So yeah, it's something you absolutely can do, and we try to find different ways to do that, to spread out the field. And to your point, when you look at some of the things we did last year, you know, you can look at our bowl game, but you can look at a lot of those things. You know, those are our run pass options where if they put an extra guy down in the box to stop the run, if you have a running quarterback, you read that guy, and if he takes away the running back, the quarterback runs. So those count as running yards. With CJ, with Dwayne, you know, what we've done is now we read that guy, and if he takes the run away, we throw the ball. So you know, all those RPO yards are actually part of the run game. It just doesn't show up like that on the stat sheet.
Third row right, Jeremy Birmingham.
Brian, it seemed like last year at times that you guys were looking all over campus for a safety who could play, and you look out there today and it's like there's a lot of guys with Tanner, with Martinez back, with, you know, and you haven't even had Lathan and Josh full go.
Right.
How much conversation is there with those guys about how to split up reps? Because Jim 2 weeks ago said it's a safety-driven defense. You have a lot of them. Court's back full time. I mean, how do you manage that?
Well, the good news is, you know, when you look at it, there's 3 safeties out there a lot of times. So there's another guy on the field doing that, where a few years ago there was 3 linebackers in the game and 2 safeties. So there's one more position in that personnel grouping that guys can get on the field, and so they're just competing. And you know, I think Jim and Perry and Tim, they're still trying to figure out how guys fit exactly, because each one of those 3 safeties, they have a different skill set and are asked to do different jobs. And like you said, you know, we still have a few guys who are out with Lathan and Josh and Jansen Dunn. Those guys aren't practicing this spring. So yeah, I mean, the depth looks a little bit different, but those guys who have been out there have a lot of reps under their belt. You know, when you look at certainly Tanner comes in with a bunch of reps, but Cam played a bunch last year. Bryson Shaw played a bunch last year. You know, Ronnie Court got some work down the stretch, and so it is good. Again, we were not anywhere near this at the this point last year with the amount of experience that we have. We still got a long way to go, but at least these guys have played in games.
How different is it for a guy like Jim coming from Oklahoma State, where he had his top line guys, but he may not have had, you know, 11, 12 deep? I mean, is it an adjustment for him to say, I can rotate when he never really had to before?
I think so, yeah. You have to figure out, you know, I always say this, you have to figure out, do I have 1 guy at the position, then do I have 2? And then if I have 3, then now I can rotate guys. But we're not just going to do that because, you know, it's you know, Little League and everybody gets to play. We're going to do it because guys deserve it, and they're putting in the work to do that. But yeah, anytime you come into a different environment, a different program, there's different dynamics at play, different skill sets. You know, I would say he would probably tell you that the guys he had last year were in the system for a long time and understood that system really well. These guys are just learning it, but we certainly have a lot of talent and some experience to go on top of it.
Second row middle, Nathan Baird, Cleveland.com.
Right. We were talking to Trevion a couple weeks ago after the second practice, and he was kind of talking about the things he went through as a freshman, and he brought up the concussions, and then kind of later came back to sort of clarify what he meant about that. Just from your perspective, from talking with your medical people, what is the difference between, you know, a guy has a concussion, gets cleared through protocol, and then experiences more symptoms past that, but then keeps sort of playing through that? What's your understanding of that dynamic?
You know, I literally just asked the trainers and asked the medical and the doctors if they're cleared or where they're at in the protocol. and that's it. So before every practice, we come through and we go through the medical report with our entire staff, and guys are either limited, out, or full go. And from there, we just kind of follow their lead on it and go from there, because it's certainly way over my head.
JT Tuimoloau, obviously you guys didn't get a lot of observation time with him last year when he got here before the season started. What have you seen from him since the end of the season to now, as far as what he's going to bring to this second season, and maybe especially, is there something that in the way that Jim's defense is going to bring something out of him?
Well, he didn't have a whole off season. He didn't even have a summer. That's probably one of the more unique ones we've had, although we've had a few in the last couple of years. But he got here a week before training camp, and that was one of the concerns that we shared with his family, was that if you show up at the end of July, you're not going to have a lot of time to prepare to get on the field. All you're going to have is August, and that's really hard. To his credit, he got on the field and played despite not having that lead-up time, which I don't think I've ever seen that before. So it says a lot about him. But now he's had a whole off season. Well, he hasn't had a whole off season, but he's had 7 weeks of winter conditioning, training. He's gotten stronger, and now he's kind of diving into the spring practice. So I think as we head into August, it'll be a whole year of work under his belt: a season, an off season, a spring, a May and June, summer, and I think he'll look a lot different.
He obviously was pretty physically advanced, and that's what allowed him to do some of the things he did last year. But are you saying, like, you think these months are going to maybe help unlock something else?
You got to think so. I mean, our experience is that, just to show up at this level of college football out of high school and just play is very difficult. I mean, I could only count on my hand, a few guys who've ever done that. I've never seen anybody show up at the end of July and even play like he did. So exciting to see where that goes with a whole year under his belt.
Right in front, Bill Rabinowitz, Columbus Dispatch.
Yeah, another question about Harry. We didn't have any idea about that, as it should be, because you were dealing with just the regular coaching stuff, trying to fix the defense, and this, which is probably bigger than anything. I mean, how did you kind of deal with that? Because that's serious stuff.
Yeah, I think one of your jobs as a college football coach or coach in any sport is just to do that, is to find ways to try to help people, but also you have to be able to compartmentalize the best you can, and that's not easy to do. But to try to deal with each individual situation, but not let it carry over to other parts of your job and your life, and that's one of the things you have to learn in this job is to do. But when you have 120 guys on a team with their families, with 50 some odd people in the building, that's 170 people on a daily basis, and it's not like you're going to work at IBM. I mean, when you take on the responsibility of recruiting someone and bring them into your building and say it's a family, then you have to take on some of the stuff that comes with that, and that's okay. That's part of the job. It's part of being a family. And you don't always agree. There's arguments. There's hard feelings. There's different things that come up along the way, but you try to work through them the best you can, and you try to help people the best you can and treat them the same way that when you recruit them, you recruit them a certain way. And I think the old school way is once they were in the building, it changed, and that's not the way we do it here. We treat them the same way that when they're here is when they were recruited, and there's a lot that comes with that, but that's the job. And if there weren't problems, we wouldn't have jobs. That's part of being a coach, is to solve the problems and try to help people, and this was just one example.
And I know that mental health is a personal issue. It matters to you. Were there times during that situation where you were thankful that this is kind of your pet issue? This is the issue that you're passionate about.
I think that I don't know. I think I recruited Harry. So maybe there was a little bit more of a connection where he felt safe to come in and have that conversation with me. Maybe it was because that I did publicly share my story with everybody and certainly show my concern for this area. So maybe there was a little bit of a comfort level there. I don't know. You'd have to ask him, but I am proud that he was able to feel comfortable enough to walk in my office and have that conversation. So, yeah, and I think this issue is not going away. So we have to keep swinging away at it, and hopefully his message is going to help some more people, so that we don't have these situations moving forward.
And he said he meant if they retire, if he were to change his mind and decide he wanted to play again, some the door would be open, if that were the case.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but I think that's why we had such a long build up to this, because it was such a big decision. I think there was times where he felt this way and wasn't sure, but didn't want to rush into a decision. but certainly going to be here for him, and you know, he's part of our family, so he's going to be moving forward.
We've got time for just a couple more. Far left, Justin Holbrook, WCMH.
Just going back to the safeties real quick,
Yeah.
did you get a chance to watch Alex Styles and Pick Central?
Yeah, I watched the whole game.
Yeah.
I mean, what a great game. What a great atmosphere. I thought it was just fun. I enjoyed watching it. I wish it wasn't 8:30 on a Sunday night, but that's all right. It was great to see. Certainly Centerville had a great team and played really, really well. But what a great game for Pick Central, the way that they played, and I thought he was tremendous. You know, I thought just when he decides he wants to go, he's what a great athlete and really skilled in basketball. A lot of times you see a football player out there, they're you know, just kind of bouncing into people and kind of the goons out there knocking people around. That's not Sonny. He's very, very skilled and had some huge baskets in the fourth quarter and some really good passes. I think the thing you notice about him is he doesn't get rattled. Has great composure and great win.
How excited are you to get that football program? Because he uses that on the court, but also he'll use that when he gets here in July.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what that looks like on the football field once he gets here, because when he decides he wants to go, the explosion, just the power that he has. I mean, just jumping on the basketball court, and when he decides he wants to really take off and go to the basket, it takes 2 dribbles and he's at the basket. So he's been blessed with a lot of athletic ability, but he's done a great job for us in helping recruiting. He's built great relationships with this class, and actually with the class that he was in before he reclassified. So excited that he's a Buckeye.
And final questions, front row right, Tim May, Letterman Row.
Yeah, Ryan, when you watch Tyleek Williams right now, and I know it's just first day of pads and stuff, but what is different about him from the first time you saw him? But number 2, how he contributed last year. Where do you see him possibly stepping his game up?
I think the difference now is he's in much better shape than he was. That's usually happens with those defensive tackles. His body's very different. He can go for an extended period of time. I think when he first got here, he'd flash for 1 or 2 plays, and you always saw his athleticism, tremendously athletic. One of the better athletes we have on our team, believe it or not. Just from 0 to 10 yards, he has one of our better times, which we have some really good athletes. He's very, very athletic, but it's the ability to sustain, and that's the thing that he's gotten much better at. And then, I think the challenge that probably Coach Johnson has for him is just his ability to sustain, but then also, in the run game being strong and stout on play after play after play, because that's really at defensive tackle what it is. You have to be able to get in there and play for an extended period of time. Just to flash 1 or 2 plays doesn't quite get it done at this level, but that's maturity, and that's where he's going. But he flashed again today at practice.
Yeah. I want to follow up on that because before I ask you my last one, but you've heard of Aaron Donald, haven't you? Yeah. I'm just being smart aleck. Is there something about that game that you as a coach, you can see that this guy has an ability, not just the physical part of it, but the ability to get into a gap, to the quickness, and does Tyleek kind of show that, I guess?
Yeah, he does. Again, it goes back to defensive tackles. They're usually big and strong and powerful, but he's a very good athlete, and you see that on the film.
And can you tell that Marvin Harrison Jr. grew up in a household, was around a Hall of Fame wide receiver? How does that show up, when you kind of watch him do his thing?
I don't know. I mean, Marv's his own person, but he certainly had a great example of obviously a Hall of Fame dad and what he did. But that's not easy to do, is to follow in someone's footsteps who's a Hall of Famer like that. I think it's easy for us just to look at it and say, well, his dad played in the NFL and then became a Hall of Famer. And there's a lot that comes with that, a lot of expectations, especially when you share the same name as your dad. And I think Marvin has done a great job of, kind of blazing his own way. But, I think the expectations have always been there for him, and not easy. But his work ethic, his approach, his attitude, who he is as a person, his parents raised a really great young man. And, he's kind of going to do his own thing, but he's, blessed with a tremendous amount of talent. But really, skill and discipline is off the chart, too. And that's hard to find because, some guys are just blessed with great talent, but they have a harder time finding that skill and that discipline. He has it both. He's created great skill, and he's created great discipline. So he's had a really good off season, and I'm proud of him.
Can I follow up on Tyleek real quick, just on that topic? Jordan Davis for Georgia last year, finished in the top 10 of the Heisman voting and played less than half their snaps. When you, and I know you guys rotate tackles anyway, but when you have a really big, explosive defensive tackle, can you do that? Say, tell them go hard, fight, explode, and we'll get you out. We'll get you a breather. Like, what's it like with an athlete like that at that size and trying to get him rest and then be explosive?
Yeah, I think in this game, it's different than playing basketball where you pace yourself up and down the floor, or maybe soccer where you're kind of going back and forth. I mean, this game is about, like you said, short, explosive movements for 4 to 6 seconds. And so, yeah, I mean, kind of like hockey where there's line changes, and how hard can you go? If you can go really hard for one play, good. Then tomorrow, hopefully you can go for 2, and you try to go for 3. And, if you can only do that, then yeah, you have to sub you out. But the great ones, they can go for an extended period of time. And that's what, we're striving for. But if they can't, then they try to give us as hard as you can for a couple plays, and we'll get you out.